You've been listening to the True Idaho News Podcast. Unfiltered news and opinion for the citizens of Idaho. Get more true news by visiting trueidahonews.com. If you'd like to support this podcast, visit trueidahonews.com/support. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everybody. Shane Class here with True Idaho News, and I already noticed that I was up until about 2:30 this morning, so forgive me. I've noticed that I already just need to get rid of that because that is not who's on the show today. I have had some allergy problems over the last couple of days, so today I'm tired. My voice is cracking. But I've spent a lot of time putting this show together, and it's something that needs to be done. It's something that needs to be said. The people that are running this state need to be exposed for who they are, and the money that's pouring in that has been running this state and driving it into the ground needs to be connected back to the people who are doing it. So, without further ado, before I get started, I do have another disclaimer that I am just going to read. Not that I think it's going to do any good, but for my own protection. So I'm just going to read this. The views and opinions expressed by myself in this podcast are my own and do not constitute legal, financial, or professional advice. I encourage all listeners to conduct their own research and verify the facts independently. Yes, I am human. And while I conduct thorough research and strive to present factual and accurate reporting, the information shared here is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. Let's get into it. Folks, Daniel Bobinski will not be joining me today. Not because he didn't want to. In fact, he originally was going to, but I wouldn't let him. I asked him to sit this one out for his own protection. On today's show, I'm going to be sharing some information that's so nuclear that I just wouldn't allow my friend to participate in this one. I've already watched one family financially destroyed for exposing the governor and his cronies, but I'm doing it anyway. And I'm bringing the receipts today. I've been in Idaho since about 1977. I was 3 when we moved here. I grew up here. My family has very deep roots here. My grandfather was a county commissioner in Twin Falls. In fact, I think he was the 12th one here. My dad was a very well-known radio personality. We farmed growing up. Grandpa was not only county commissioner, but then he went on to be a chair, I think even president of the Twin Falls Canal Board. We farmed. My uncles even had class auction over in Jerome. I've watched Twin Falls go from a small community of about 25,000 people to the overcrowded disaster that Blue Lakes is today. I love this state. I have some incredible memories growing up here, and I consider myself very blessed to be an Idahoan. But what I have witnessed in our Idaho government over the past several years makes me sick to my stomach. I've watched lives destroyed because of these people. I've watched businesses closed because of these people. And children have been harmed because of these people. So today I'm doing something about it. The best of what I can do. I can't go haul these people off into court. I can't put them in jail, but I can share with you who they are. I can draw the connections between the power and the politicians. I'm going to show you the connection between the rings of thugs, all the way from the governor to the biggest businesses in this state and from out of state who are running this state. They're using the state and their resources as their personal piggy banked at the expense of you, the taxpayer, the citizens of Idaho. I'm going to show you a system that's so corrupt that they are willing to destroy anyone who dares to try to expose them. They've done it, even if it means using a doctored video in court to do so. And yes, I'm going to show you that video. And I'm doing this knowing that I'm putting myself in the crosshairs of these people. But I can't sit by and put up with it anymore. I've watched them turn this state upside down for too long, and it's time to do something about it. So I'm going to show you the information. From there, it's up to you. I'm asking you to share this with everyone you know. Hit the share button right now, get it out there, because the only thing that's going to protect me is if this gets out too fast for them to know, for them to be able to do anything about it. And maybe if enough people see this soon enough, it'll be too late for them. So let's get into it. This all starts with a law firm called Holland Hart and a big group, a lobbyist group called IACI. Now, who are these people? Well, Holland Hart is a law firm that I believe they're headquartered out of Denver, Colorado. They have an office in Boise, Idaho, and our state uses them. They use them all the time. Our legislator uses them. Our governor uses them. IACI, I believe, uses them. They've got connections back to them. You can see here the state hired a private law firm, Holland Hart, for the condemnation case. This is all the way back in 2015. The Boise law firm of Holland Hart, they were the legislator's attorney. They received $142,000, by the way, for the Ybarra lawsuit. The legislator was represented by private attorneys led by William G. Myers III of the firm Holland Hart. This was back in 2021. By the way, this was on a case, the lawmakers, there was a new initiative law that they were trying to pass. So, okay, our legislator was trying to pass a law that was going to make it more difficult for the people to get a initiative on the ballot. Now, think about this for a second. If your legislator in Idaho isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, if you don't believe that they're doing what they're supposed to do, if they're not representing the people, there's a law that the people want, but the legislator refuses to pass it or the governor vetoes it. In Idaho, you have the ability to start an initiative, a ballot initiative. And you have to go around to a certain number of counties and you have to get a certain number of people to sign on for the initiative. And if you get enough signatures on it from Idaho citizens, Idaho registered voters, then it goes to the ballot and then the voters can decide if it becomes law. And if they voted on it, it becomes law immediately. Now, let me ask you this. Why would the power people in Idaho not want you, the people, to be able to legislate them? Why would they not want you to put a law out? But they decided that that's what they wanted to do. And the people stepped up and said, no, we're going to fight this because it's going to make it more difficult for us to have a voice in Idaho. And lo and behold, our state hires Holland Hart to represent them. They went so far as to approve an additional $4 million in taxpayer funding for the Legislative Legal Defense Fund, which is split between the House and the Senate. The Idaho portion that particular year had dropped to a zero balance, but the Idaho Press reported that public records show that he's being paid $470 an hour. It's unclear how much the state pays. Now, when the state uses our own attorneys, it costs us less than $100 an hour. But when we use Holland Hart, $470 an hour. In his role with another article, in his role as of counsel with Holland Hart LLP, Christopher McCurdy. Remember that name. Remember this name, Christopher McCurdy, folks. Assisted clients in finding efficient, cost-effective, practical litigation solutions to a wide range of business disputes. One of the professional accomplishments McCurdy is most proud of. Now think about this. One of the things he's most proud of is his involvement in the Idaho House of Representatives Ethics Committee investigations involving former Representative Aaron Von Hellinger, thank you, and Priscilla Giddings. Remember those names, because I'm going to come back around. We're going to circle back around to this. Now, I want you to remember when Priscilla Giddings ran for governor, lieutenant governor, rather. Priscilla Giddings was one of the few people to receive, I believe, a 100% score from the Idaho Freedom Foundation, a very conservative lawmaker. And Priscilla Giddings, in the Vollinger case, there was some alleged misconduct between him and I believe it was an intern. I didn't dig into this particular case really deep. I'm remembering back to when all of this happened, trying to give you a little bit of a recap. And so the ethics committee for our legislator, our House, decided that they were going to censure him and bring him up and have a big to-do. Priscilla Giddings shared a post that somebody else had written that happened to include the name of the particular person that was involved, the intern, I believe, or whoever the alleged victim was. We'll call this individual, and she shared it. It was public knowledge. It was already out there in public. She shared it, and Scott Bedke and his cronies in the ethics committee and in the Idaho House, they decided to bring her up on ethics violations for sharing this. Now, here's what's interesting. When they brought up Vollinger, they used state attorneys. And then after that, and after what happened when she shared that video out, I just want you to think about how deep this goes. I'm going to bring all of this together, but there's a lot of all of these kind of independent cases, and you're going to have to follow along with this in order to get the full picture. Priscilla Giddings decides to run for lieutenant governor. Now, she announced this. The Idaho Ed News staff posted this in May 21st of 2021. Now, this first ethics thing, I believe, happened in April, and when she did the post. So May 2021, she announces that she's running for lieutenant governor. Now, this is an article from the Associated Press, Boise, Idaho. It said Priscilla Giddings says that an ethics investigation she's facing is dirty politics. Yet her opponent in the race for lieutenant governor, you see who that is there? House Speaker Scott Bedke said Wednesday the probe is legitimate and the complaint signed by a bipartisan group of 24 lawmakers was dated before Giddings announced she was running. Okay, maybe so. However, now this is the part that I want you to pay attention to. The complaint was filed by Bedke. He was one of them that signed the complaint. But when it came around in August 2nd of 2021, for the ethics committee to bring Priscilla Giddings up, they hired Chris McCurdy and Holland and Hart to handle that case. Why, when it didn't involve Scott Bedke running for lieutenant governor and Priscilla Giddings, who was running against him, was it suddenly so important that they had to get an outside attorney involved? Those are questions you ought to be asking. And notice again this name, Holland and Hart. This is going to keep coming up. So Speaker Bedke, another interesting thing that the Idaho Dispatch reported right after this or during this investigation, had a headline that said Speaker Bedke received a campaign donation from firm tasked with questioning Giddings. In that article, they stated that Holland and Hart donated money to Speaker Scott Bedke back in 2016. Now, a concerned citizen brought this up and brought it to the dispatch, and that concerned citizen said that alleged that McCurdy worked for a firm that has donated to Bedke and that there's a conflict of interest. In addition, Bedke and Giddings are both running for lieutenant governor, and some lawmakers and citizens have questions if Bedke should have removed himself from the complaint. Now, here's just a picture right here showing that they made the donation. But I want you to take a look up here also, because this name Micron is affiliated with ACCI, and we're going to talk a lot about ACCI today. They're a board member. Now, Idaho Dispatch also asked the House committee why a private law firm was used for this hearing when they used the Attorney General's office for the April ethics hearing. So when it didn't involve someone going against Bedke for lieutenant governor, the Attorney General's office was good enough. But when it involved Priscilla Giddings, who was running against Scott Bedke, all of a sudden they needed to bring in the heavy hammer. They brought in Holland and Hart. So, I'm going to start there, put a pin in that. Let's move forward a little bit. Scott Bedke received this raving review by Brad Little. Brad said that Scott Bedke is a trusted conservative who delivers results for Idahoans. He will continue to work for the people as Idaho's lieutenant governor. Scott Bedke worked with me to cut red tape and make Idaho the least regulated state in the nation, provided Idahoans historic tax relief and fully funded law enforcement and first responders. As Lieutenant Governor, Scott Bedke will be a trusted partner and help us continue to make Idaho the place where we can all have the opportunity to thrive. I'm excited to endorse Scott Bedke as the next Republican Lieutenant Governor. Now, I find this interesting. Now, remember, I'm talking about IACI. This is one of the other heavy hitters. So we're going to move over to IACI for a minute. So remember Holland and Hart. We have Holland and Hart over here on one side. Then we have IACI over here on the other side. Let's talk about IACI for a minute. Brad Little sat on the board of IACI. He was in IACI for some 20 years, I believe. And IACI is the they are the Idaho Association of Commerce and Industry, and they have what they call their Idaho Prosperity Fund, which is their PAC. And they announced today that they were endorsing Brad Little in this article. This was from 2017. They endorsed Brad Little. So you have IACI endorses Brad Little endorses Scott Bedke. And when Scott Bedke was going up against Priscilla Giddings for lieutenant governor to replace Lieutenant Governor McGeehan, then they bring in the heavy hitters of Holland and Hart. Keep following this trail. It gets interesting. So when IACI brought on endorsed Brad Little, and again, IACI is as Idaho's they're the oldest and most powerful lobbying group in Idaho. In fact, we should talk about them just a little bit and the kind of power that they have and the kind of money that is behind IACI as we move into this. So I'm going to bring this over, see if I can bring this up onto the screen. I got a lot of windows open here. I've got a lot going on, but excuse me. IACI's board of directors, they include some big money people. Alaska Airlines, Altria Client Services, Amalgamated Sugar, Amazon, AT&T. Just look at the list over here. Bayer, Blue Cross of Idaho, Boise Cascade, Idaho Power, Melaleuca, Meta, which is Facebook's parent company, Regions Blue Shield of Idaho, Wells Fargo, Western Governors University, St. Alphonsus, St. Luke's, okay, JR Simplot, Mountain View. This is the who's who of money in Idaho sit on the board of IACI. There's a lot of power players there. So Governor Little was with Iacki. Then Iacki props him up. They prop him up and endorse him for governor. And when he becomes the governor, then when he's running, first of all, let's back up a little. When he's running, he named his campaign manager and as his chief of staff. So when his campaign manager, when he was running, was Zach Hague, who was vice president at the Idaho Association of Commerce and Industry. He was Iacki. And then when Brad Little became governor, he brought in Zach Hague as Little's chief of staff. Iacki pushes him up. Brad Little brings another board member on up with him. And then Governor-elect Little announces his transition committee. So when he gets elected and he's getting ready to take office, it's time for his transition committee. Who does he bring in as the chairman of the transition committee? Brian Wunderlich, partner at Holland Hart. So fast forward a little bit further. Keep following me here. You see where this is going. Follow me a little further into Ammon Bundy when he announced his run for governor. So you go up to, this is June 19th of 2021. Ammon Bundy announces his run for Idaho governor. Now, it's no secret that the governor did not care for Ammon Bundy, because Ammon Bundy was exposing during his campaign, even before his campaign, he was exposing the cronyism that happened in Idaho that's going on. But then during his campaign, he released ads like this one. And pay attention to this. It's a doozy.
With Brad Little and the Republican good old boys controlling the Idaho House, Senate, and governor's office for the past 26 years, being Republicans, you would think that Idaho would be the most conservative state in the country, but it's not. Here are some facts. As a state senator, Governor Little was the only Idaho representative to support gay marriage in the 2000s. In the last few years alone, Governor Little has increased Idaho's food stamp program by 24.2%. That's more than any other state in the country. Governor Little just recently dedicated $50 million in federal COVID relief funds to free government housing in Idaho. Governor Little also supported Obamacare and Medicaid expansion in Idaho. With Brad Little as governor, nearly 40% of Idaho's budget goes to state welfare. Why is this important for you to know? Because free housing, government welfare, food stamps, state-funded health care, and pushing the gay ideology have been the staple of the leftist agenda for decades now. And no person has moved that agenda more in Idaho than Brad Little. No wonder Idaho is in a fatal battle for its conservative soul. Because of politicians like Brad Little, we're losing Idaho to liberals. In short, Idaho is sliding down that path and becoming more like Oregon and California. You know it, you've felt it, and you've seen it. And I don't want to lose Idaho like the good people of Colorado lost their state. I'm Ammon Bundy, and I'm running for governor because I'm sick and tired of all the political garbage that's happening in Idaho. Just like you, I'm running for governor to fight and win the conservative battle in Idaho.
Okay. So Ammon Bundy starts putting out these ads, and he starts releasing information about Brad Little. Brad Little, wait a minute, isn't Brad Little conservative? Well, when you start looking at his record, when you start looking at the people who were profiting from him being governor and funneling money down through the medical side of his executive branch, giving money to health and welfare. Well, when you're putting more and more money into those types of entitlement services, health and welfare, that all benefits big pharma. That benefits the big hospitals. Again, remember, let's go back over here. Let's take a look at some of one more time. Let's look at who is on the board of Iacki. You have health services, you have insurance, health insurance companies. You have St. Alphonsus, you have Molina Healthcare, Mountain View Hospital, Regents Blue Shield of Idaho, Let's keep looking through here. We have Pacific Source Health Plans. You have some of these other companies that are under different names. I think Perpetua. Some of these are also involved in the healthcare industry. You have Bayer. You have Blue Cross of Idaho. Okay, these are all the big money people in Idaho that are part of IACI. Now, let me ask you something. They are Idaho's largest and most powerful lobbyist group, so large and so powerful that they have an office in Idaho's capital in Boise, Idaho. Why do their lobbyists sit in our Idaho capital? And our governor sat on the board of IACI, rubbing shoulders with these people. He's got a lot of friends that stand to profit when more and more money gets funneled down into the medical industry in Idaho. Keep that in mind. Do you think these people, by the way, do you see anywhere in here with this heavy lobby group where it's the citizens of Idaho? Who do you think they're lobbying for? Are they lobbying for you? Are they lobbying for bills that are going to put more money into your pockets? Are they lobbying for bills that are going to cut your taxes? Are they lobbying for bills that are going to protect you, that are going to create a more free society for you? Do you think that that's what these people sit on this board for? And by the way, a very large percentage of these people, of these companies, are based outside of Idaho. Their headquarters are somewhere else. So why do these lobbyist groups that have interests from outside of Idaho have an office in our Idaho capital? I'd like to know the answer to that. But that wasn't it. I'm going to show you another. Now, this is important. Whatever you think of Ammon Bundy, would he have been a good governor? I don't know. I supported him when he was running because look at who our governor is. Look at Brad Little. Look at the ties he has back to IACI. Look where his loyalties lie. His loyalties aren't with the people of Idaho. His loyalties are with big business, with big pharma, with big medical, with all of those big ag. That's where his loyalties lie, people. He does not have your best interests in mind. He has theirs. And he's proven it over and over and over again. And what Ammon Bundy did was start to expose that. He started shining light on that. So regardless of if you thought that he would have been a good governor or not, regardless if you agreed with his tactics, regardless if you agreed with the way he handled himself, if you think he's a smart guy or not, and he is, by the way, he developed a software which he sold for a truckload of money. So he is a very smart person. He may not be as eloquently spoken as our current governor, but he's a smart guy. I've spent a lot of time sitting down talking with him. So regardless of what you think of him, though, what he was exposing was truth. And I want to show you another video here because he started exposing more and more. And this is important. This is the big picture. And you need to understand this. As a voter in Idaho, as a citizen of Idaho, as a taxpayer, you really need to understand these things. So pay attention.
This year, we got Potlatch, donated $10,000 to Brad Little's campaign. Intermountain Gas Company donated $10,000 to Brad Little's campaign. J.R. Simplot Company donated $10,000 to Brad Little's campaign this year. Micron Technology donated $10,000 to Brad Little's campaign this year. Blue Cross of Idaho donated $10,000 to Brad Little's campaign this year. Idaho Power donated $10,000 to Brad Little's campaign this year. Clearwater Paper donated $10,000 to Brad Little's campaign this year. You see a pattern?
You see a pattern? I do. And with the exception of Intermountain Gas, he did put in a little retraction. Intermountain Gas did donate to Brad Little's campaign, but they did not donate to Idaho's Boise Pride Festival. So I do want to mention that in the heart of accuracy. Okay. So we have IACI. We have Holland and Hart. We have big money, big business. And now we have the Boise Pride Festival. This is also very important that you see the ties here. And I'm going to unpackage that for you. So Ammon starts coming out with all of this information. He starts exposing the money. He starts exposing who Brad Little's loyalties are, who's been donating to him. And believe you me, these big money people aren't going to put $10,000 in Brad Little's campaign pocket in his war chest if they don't expect to get a little back. Okay. If they don't think that he has their interests in mind. And remember, once again, I'm going to keep saying this. He was on the board of IACI. He chaired it. So whatever you think, you cannot deny that he's got some loyalties there with IACI and with these people. And these people, these companies, with the exception that Ammon Bundy mentioned in that video, they, with the exception of Intermountain Gas, gave to Boise Pride Festival. Why were they donating to Boise Pride? I think we might find the answers here. So all of a sudden, if you recall, there was an incident with St. Luke's and Baby Cyrus. Now, I'm not going to go into that one. I'm not going to go deep into it. What it amounted to was Baby Cyrus's parents disagreed with St. Luke's. And they wanted to get a second opinion. And St. Luke's allegedly, I'm going to say that, contacted CPS, I believe it was, who then later, because somebody dared to question St. Luke's and their infinite wisdom and knowledge. Remember, they supported the masking and the jabs. So in their infinite knowledge and wisdom, all powerful St. Luke's their doctors decided that, well, if you're not going to listen to me and you want to go get a second opinion, yeah, we're going to call CPS because we believe that you should have done what we told you to do, and that was in the best interest of your child. And so they contacted CPS. CPS then ended up picking up Baby Cyrus, bringing Cyrus back to St. Luke's, where allegedly there was already a foster family waiting to take Baby Cyrus. And Ammon Bundy, who knew the family, went down to St. Luke's and staged a protest and started exposing what he believed was going on with St. Luke's. And that landed him in a lawsuit. With St. Luke's himself and Diego Rodriguez. And remember, St. Luke's is on the board of IACI. The lawsuit by St. Luke's was headed up by none other than Eric Stidham from Holland and Hart. Now, you may know Holland and Hart's name. They came up in the paper just recently in the news because if you'll recall, the Boise City Council, that they were considering a flag resolution. Well, looky there, Eric Stidham and several others from Holland and Hart volunteered to represent the city pro bono if any legal action is taken against the city in this manner. Folks, I'm questioning, why is Holland and Hart and all these other companies in Idaho so interested in Boise Pride and the Rainbow Festival? Stick a pin in that. It's another good question. I'm going to approach that. Well, as it all turned out, Ammon Bundy and Diego Rodriguez were ordered to pay St. Luke's over $52 million in damages. if you're watching this, I want to ask you something. How many of you think that St. Luke's really lost $52 million over that? Is that a fair amount? Remember, they started with a lot lower amount. I think it was like $50,000 that they were going to go after him. But because he dared just to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to participate in your court. I'm not going to participate. It's a civil case. I'm not going to show up. And if I don't show up, what happens to the rest of us when we don't show up for a civil case? You get a default judgment. The default judgment, then you go pay the fines, fees, whatever the judgment is, and you move on with your life. But instead, he ended up getting arrested. There was a warrant out for his arrest because he failed to participate, because he didn't believe in that the system was going to work for him. He didn't believe that it was going to work. Well, I mean, look at the power players here. They were sending him, Holland Hart, that Eric was sending him like a ream of paper every other day. I was over there at Ammon's house in Emmett, and I watched some of the stacks of paper, of documents that they were sending him. They were sending him so many documents that I don't know a single person that could have afforded the attorney's fees to have an attorney go through all of those documents in order to mount some kind of a defense. It would have been just an ungodly amount of money. So he didn't have a chance. He didn't have a hope in the world. So that he just, heck with him. I won't even participate. And he was awarded $52 million, or they were awarded from Diego and Ammon. This is the part. This is the part that you probably came here for this video for. This is the part that's going to put me in the crosshairs of Holland Hart and St. Luke's. This is the part that I decided it would be best to keep Dr. Daniel Babinski, my friend and founder of True Idaho News, out of this video for. Sunday, what spurred all of this up and made me do this today, a video popped up in my YouTube feed, and I'm going to play that video for you now.
Now, I have to say that I'm not okay with any of this. To be honest with you, if justice was to be served, we would go into that hospital, take that baby, and we'd give it back to their mother. And then if we are further to administrate justice, we would find those that were accountable, and we would prosecute them and make them pay for the damages that they caused to this family, and assure that this never happens again. That's what should happen. And I will say this, that I'm not alone in those feelings, but we also have had to suppress those thoughts and actions because we are trying to give the people that are making the decisions, that are doing this thing to them, give them a chance to correct this issue so we don't have to do it for them.
Does this look to be the video that you saw in the morning on March 15th?
I believe this is the video in the afternoon.
Okay. So if we go ahead and play the video, I've got some questions for you after it.
If justice was to be served, we would go into the hospital, take that baby, and we'd give it back to their mother. And then if we were further to administrate justice, we would find those that were accountable, and we would prosecute them and make them pay. I know that there are groups, patriot groups, that have make them pay for the damages that they caused to this family. Make them pay. I know that there are groups, patriot groups, that have make them pay for the damages that they caused to this family. Make them pay. I know that there are groups, make them pay for.
Did you pick up on that? This is Ammon showed the original video of what was allegedly, and I got to choose my words so carefully here, guys, and I'm sorry, I'm going to use the term allegedly. I'm going to use some terms like this for my own protection here. Allegedly, this was the original video, which was a lot longer than what was allegedly presented in the courtroom to the jury that awarded $52 million to St. Luke's. And if this is true, if this, which I personally believe, that this is true and accurate, that the original video that was brought into the courtroom by St. Luke's and Holland and Hart. Now, let me make it clear. I do not know for a fact that the video was altered. Certainly looks like it was. I have no reason to believe that Ammon Bundy made this up. Why? It doesn't make any sense. I have no reason to believe that that he made that up. So I have every reason to believe, personally, my personal opinion is that this is an accurate representation of what the original video was and what was shown in that courtroom. That Holland and Hart and St. Luke's CEO brought into the courtroom to use, without Ammon there, to use in their court case in which the jury awarded that $52 million. Now, I do not know if Holland and Hart edited that video and doctored it. I don't know if St. Luke's or their CEO doctored that video. But I'm pretty sure that video was used in court and it was doctored, which is a felony in the state of Idaho. I watched that video over and over again because I was shocked and appalled that a law firm that our state uses over and over again, that we give $470 an hour or whatever that was that I showed you earlier, that we give that much money to them, that we use this law firm on a political witch hunt against Priscilla Giddings, that we use that law firm, and they would bring a doctored video, allegedly doctored video, into a courtroom against an Idaho citizen, a former candidate for governor of the state of Idaho. So I got on the phone and I called Ammon, had a conversation with him, and he alleges that that wasn't the only lie that was brought into that courtroom that day. His account to me was that in 2023, he had got his hands on on that recording from the courtroom, he wasn't sure if he got that. He couldn't remember if he got that. He thought maybe that came from Diego when Diego had subpoenaed that court recording of the entire court proceedings. Or if it was the one that he did, because there was so much going through. Imagine, stacks and stacks of papers and documents, and he was having to go through all of it. But he does state that was a true copy. That was a clip that was played in the courtroom to the jury that gave them that award. And he states that that he knew back then he could remember the original video, and he said that's not how that original video went. But that until Sunday this week, It took him that long because Holland Hart St. Luke's has, according to Ammon, I'm being very careful of my words. According to Ammon, St. Luke's and through Holland and Hart, their attorney made YouTube and social media take down a bunch of videos. And because of that, it made it very difficult for him. He had to go back and through all the videos that he's made. He's made a lot of them. And he was finally able to find the copy of the original and play it for himself, and then go back and play what was played in that courtroom. He alleges that after playing the two of those, that it was what I just showed you. That there were discrepancies, that it was doctored to make it look like he made a threat towards St. Luke's that he didn't make. And that let's go back and just one more time. Look how egregious this is. Make them pay for the damages that they caused. Okay? He's talking about a legal method of resolution. But what he alleges was played in court, let's get up to it. Now, remember, this is Eric Stidham asking, presumably, allegedly, according to this video right here, okay? This is Eric Stidham from Holland and Hart asking CEO Chris Roth if the video he's about to play is exactly what Ammon Bundy posted up. I know there are patriot groups. Makes him sound like he's going to do this in a violent manner. And what he was really doing, if you go back to the original video, was saying, "Hey, I'm encouraging these people to not do anything." Now, I don't know what you think about that. I know what I think about that. But let's just keep moving on. So, if you recall in the earlier video that Ammon had posted up, that nearly 40% of Idaho's budget was going to Health and Human Services. I want to start this off with the question: why? What could be so important that allegedly St. Luke's and Holland and Hart would present a allegedly doctored video to a jury, that they would come down this hard on him? If you recall, 40% of our budget in Idaho goes to Health and Human Services. Health and Human Services, again, St. Luke's makes a lot of money off of that. And St. Luke's, you know what else they make a lot of money off of, or they were making a lot of money off of? Maybe they're still making a lot of money off of. I don't know. Transition surgeries. And that includes for minors. The LGBTQ crowd. That's big money. I think Ammon talks about that. I think this is the video, if I've got the right one up here, where he talks about that a little bit.
Is an actual government entity, the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, under the executive direction of Governor Brad Little. In their letter talking about their sponsorship, they say sponsoring events across the state is an opportunity for Department of Health and Welfare to interact and provide public health education and services to diverse communities across Idaho. So that's what their justification is. Well, let's look how much they've donated. Well, in 2021, they've donated $164,000 to pride groups, festivals in Idaho. You can see here, $15,000 to Boise Pride Festival, $20,000 to Boise Pride Festival, $3,000 to Southern Idaho Pride Inc., $20,000 to Boise Pride Festival, $15,000 to Southern Idaho Pride Inc., $10,000 to Southern Idaho Pride Inc., and then $1,000, $3,000, $1,000, $1,000, another $10,000 to Boise Pride Festival. This is taxpayers' dollars. Taxpayers' dollars.
Your money, folks. Your money going through the Department of Health and Welfare, again, to pride festivals. But connect the dots. It's big money. Big money goes into these transitioning surgeries. And your tax dollars has been paying for them to fund these pride festivals. It was. Well, it probably still is. So let's take a look at some of the sponsors of this Pride Festival, because now we're going to bring all this back around together. And I think you're going to be able to connect the same dots I did. Now, again, another disclosure, these are my opinions. I'm presenting the facts as best as I can find them out there, and I'm drawing my conclusion. I encourage you to draw your own conclusion and do your own research into this. But let's dig now. I think you're going to see how all of this ties back around together, and it's disgusting. So the best that I could come up with, and I need to give this also another quick disclaimer. As I was looking into the sponsors of the Pride Festival for 2024, I've got the list of the sponsors for 2024, but I couldn't find the exact amount of money. So what I could find is what they would give if they had sponsored it in 2025. I would imagine that it's very close, but again, I want to be very accurate. I want to be as transparent and open and honest with you as I possibly can. This is True Idaho news, not True Idaho, garbage. So let's just unpack this a little bit. So we have the presenting sponsor for the Boise Pride Festival in 2024 was Albertsons. Then look down here at the red sponsor, the second level, Micron. We find Micron on the board of IACI. And then when we go to the third level sponsor, $18,000. Oh, by the way, look how much money Micron gave to the LGBTQ Rainbow Pride Festival. $30,000. And by the way, your tax dollars are subsidizing that big, beautiful new facility they're putting in out there. Next level was Orange, and we find, by the way, Boise, city of Boise, yeah, your tax dollars over there in the city of Boise spent $18,000 supporting the Pride Festival in 2024. Well, I'm guessing. Okay, they were an Orange level sponsor. Let me be clear. So it may not have been $18,000, but it's probably pretty close. And look who else, Simplot, another board member of IACI. Yellow sponsorships. Okay. We find Blue Cross of Idaho. They were a sponsor in 2024. And if it was 2025, in 2025, that sponsorship was $12,000. I imagine it was probably pretty close. Blue Cross of Idaho. Why are they so, why do they think that's so important that they have to give to it? Another IACI though. Let's go to the green level. Green sponsors for 2024. In 2025, that would have been $7,000. I don't know what it was in 2024. It was only a year before. Probably pretty close. St. Luke's. St. Luke's giving money to Boise Pride. Do you think they spend money on things just because it's fun to do? Or do you think they spend money on things that are going to put money back in their pocket? Then we find in the blue sponsors, that would have been $4,000 in 2025. In 2024, we find Boise Cascade, an IACI member. We find Hewlett Packard, and they're an IACI member. And look who else we find right there in the middle, Holland and Hart. You're putting this all together, folks. Violet level, which would have been $2,000 in 2025. Don't know what it was in 2024. But again, we find St. Alphonsus, an IACI member, Select Health, an IACI board member. Why? You have to ask yourself why. Because it is in the state of Idaho, that's pretty divisive. That goes against the conservative voter. The average conservative voter doesn't want to see their tax dollars going there. They don't want to see the Pride Festival going on. They don't want to see the hedonism in its presented in its fullest, walking down the streets of Idaho's streets in a parade in Boise, in our state's capital. We don't want to see that mess. The average conservative voter would say, no, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. But the governor of Idaho was on the board of IACI. IACI propped him up. He brought board members into his cabinet. He brought somebody from Holland and Hart into his cabinet. And then he's also making sure during COVID, an insane amount of money, we're going to talk about that, was funneled down through the Health and Human Services, which all of these people on IACI, this medical industry was profiting from. And Ammon Bundy spoke out against it. And the same players drug him into court to the tune of $52 million. Because he said something. A lot of people have said things about St. Luke's. A lot of people, you can go on social media, look it up. There's a lot of people that dog them. There's a lot of people that aren't happy with them. I'm not happy with the way they treated my fiance when she went there. Got sent home. When she went in there, she was in pain, got sent home. I don't think she'll mind me sharing this with you. We went into St. Luke's of Twin Falls, Idaho, and she was in a lot of abdominal pain, an excruciating amount of pain. It takes an excruciating amount of pain to drag either one of us into a hospital, much less one owned by St. Luke's. And when we got in there, they did an ultrasound. The ultrasound tech took a look at the ultrasound, and he went, "Oh." And I was standing there. I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Well, I'm not supposed to say anything." Yeah, I'm not supposed to say anything, but I'm sending this over to, we have to send it over to Boise. Boise takes a look at it, and then Boise makes a decision on it. So Boise took a look at it and sent us home. That was the end of it. Got sent home. Yeah, here you go. It's nothing major. She's rocking back and forth in the bed an hour later and rocking back and forth in pain. You know how that is when you hurt so bad you can't stand it. You're rocking back and forth. And so I call them up. I chew their butt. I tell them I'm bringing her back in. I want a different doctor. We got a different doctor. That doctor took a look at the ultrasound and he went, "Hey, guess what? You have a cyst about that size, about the size of a softball on one of your ovaries, and it has turned over. It is cutting the blood supply to that ovary. It's dying. We're going to get you in here for surgery and get that taken out in the morning." So I'm not a fan. I've spoken out against them for that. And a lot of people have. Why did nobody's ever come after me for $52 million? They haven't gone after anybody else that I know for $52 million for speaking out. Why did they choose Ammon Bundy to go after? Why was he so important? What made him so special? I don't know. Could it be that he went up against the lieutenant or against the governor? Could it be that he started exposing the corruption in the state? Could it be that he started tying IACI and the IACI board members back to the Pride Festival? Could it be that he was speaking out about those things as well? Could it be that he was exposing the corruption in the state of Idaho? And that could it be that could it be, I'm just asking, could it possibly be that they did not want him to have the political clout that he had, and so they sought out to destroy him? You decide for yourself on that. I don't know, but to me, it sure passes the sniff test. But I've got more.
Now, to connect a couple more dots, St. Luke's Hospital was the #1 private beneficiary of the COVID funds, coming directly from Governor Brad Little's office. Now, the #1 government entity that received COVID funds from the governor's office was the Department of Health and Welfare. So there's a direct connection there. And as a side note, St. Luke's Hospital is suing me, as you know, and their law firm is Holland Hart, who's also a sponsor of the Boise Pride Fest, Holland Hart. Now, to connect a couple more dots, St. Luke's Hospital was the #1 private beneficiary.
Okay. Sorry, again, I'm running on about 4 hours sleep, thinking about what I was going to do today. So forgive me. And then with the allergies, my voice, I know I haven't been on point today, but I hope that I'm giving you this information in a manner that that you can unpack it and that you can connect the same dots. Can you see the circle? This big, ugly circle in Idaho between IACI and the governor, lobbyists in the Capitol, the connections with Holland Hart that the governor has, and who represented St. Luke's, who was also profiting off of money that the governor apportioned during COVID. Can you see the connections here? And how that relates to Ammon Bundy? And can you see the connection? Can you see the injustice that's done by just simply him pointing out what he thought was going on, the way he saw it? You know what else is big money in Idaho? CPS. You know what else across the nation has a lot of red flags? These kids that come out of CPS and they get put into foster homes, and the high percentage. I'm going to show you another one. High percentage, an extremely high percentage. I believe it's 7 times. Now, don't hold me to that. I might be quoting that one wrong, but I believe it's about 7 times higher likelihood that a kid's going to be put into the hands of a homosexual family if they go into CPS. It's big money. Big money. Ammon was exposing it. Can you see the connection? Holland Hart, by the way, is not just an Idaho company. It's a national company. They've got different branches around the nation, and I think their headquarters are in Denver. But I was kind of curious where Holland Hart falls on the scale of liberal or Democrat, Democrat or conservative Republican. So I dug into some of their campaign contributions through Open Secrets. And according to Open Secrets, they gave $269,000 in 2024. And you want to know who they gave that money to? Primarily, all over the years, they've given to Democrats, heavily to Democrats. And take a close look at this one. I'm gonna blow your mind here. Are you ready for this? Their #1 recipient in 2024 was Kamala Harris's campaign. You know who else you get to see on here? Now just take a look at all the blue versus red. Act Blue is in the list of people that they donated. And by the way, in years prior, it was a lot more money than that. Why in conservative Idaho are we using this law firm? That's the question I want to know. Is this the kind of law firm that you want your tax dollars supporting? Folks, I'm going to be digging more and more into this. I've asked Ammon to keep me posted as he's digging through the court records and as he's discovering what he alleges are more lies and corruption that happened in that court trial. And I'm going to be bringing those out to you. I'm also digging into a little bit more government corruption. And on Friday, I've got another one of our representatives that's going to be coming onto the show, and he's going to be talking about some of that corruption. So I encourage you to be here on Friday. I'm going to end my show with one more video from Ammon Bundy, and I'm going to play it in its entirety. Hope you stick around to see it through to the end. Share this, get it out there. See you next time.
Hey guys, I just checked out St. Luke's Hospital's website, and they're still advertising that they're doing sex change hormonal therapy and sex change surgeries on minors here in Idaho. I did a video on this a few months ago with all the evidence and their websites and all of that. And so I'm going to show it here. You got to check it out. So what did these people do to earn this money, to deserve this money? Well, they participated in taking baby sires from us loving and caring parents. And what did Diego and I do to deserve everything we own and more stripped from us? Well, we said bad things about them for taking baby sires away. Bad things that are true, that they did not want other people to hear. Things that were exposing them. And what type of things did we say that were bad about them? Well, the same type of things that other people are saying about them. In fact, on February 7th, in the Idaho Tribune, there's an article titled Representative Bruce Skagg introduced bill blocking child genital mutilation and puberty blockers in Idaho. The article is very interesting. It says, yesterday, February 7th, is a day that will live in infamy for groomers, child predators, Democrats, perverts, Satanists, sodomites, Antifa, pedophilias, and the senior executives at St. Luke's Hospital. Interesting, right? The article goes on, it says, Representative Bruce Skagg introduced a bill that will make it a felony in Idaho to provide any kind of so-called gender-affirming care that mutilates the reproductive organs of a minor. Talks about the bill. There's a statement from the Idaho Republican Party, Dorothy Moon, the chairwoman, and she says, in support of the bill, the fight to protect Idaho's children from pseudoscience and biomedical industrial complex is here. So the fight is here. Now the article goes on and says the medical industry and the Democrat Party have been attempting to keep a lid on all of this because sex reassignment surgeries are an absolute goldmine for the healthcare field. These surgeries cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and are usually accompanied by years of care, dozens of different prescriptions, frequent complications, and ongoing care. So they make a ton of money on these sex reassignment surgeries. But why did this article list the senior executives of St. Luke's Hospital with the likes of groomers, child predators, Democrats, perverts, Satanists, and sodomites, including Antifa and pedophiles? Why would they do that? Well, here's another article that explains. It says, this is from the Washington Stand, and it's titled,
13 U.S. hospitals perform gender transition surgeries on minors. The list, it gives a list, and it says, number 1, UCLA Pediatric Practices, Los Angeles, California. 2, Stanford Medical Children's Health, Palo Alto, California. 3, Connecticut Children's Hospital, Hartford, Connecticut. 4, St. Luke's Children's Hospital, Boise, Idaho. It says, the Essence Clinic at St. Luke's Children's Hospital, Boise, Idaho, offers hormonal therapy, including puberty blockers, and surgical consultations and referrals to children, adolescents, and young adults. 2 of its 5 providers specialize in surgery. Now, I wanted to know this was true, wanted to fact check it. So I went to the St. Luke's website. Here you go. You'll see here it says St. Luke's Children's Essence Clinic. That is found in the St. Luke's Children's Hospital. You remember downtown with the bear on top of it? There it is. There's a picture. And it says, the team of specialists at St. Luke's Children's Essence Clinic is dedicated to improving health and experiences for children, adolescents, and young adults with differences in sexual development and or gender identity. Down here on areas of focus, it says our team provides hormonal therapies, mental health evaluations, and surgical consultations, including plastic surgery. So when I go to the St. Luke's website under transgender medical options, you can see here medical options for gender affirmation includes hormonal therapy. This is medicine to help increase or decrease sex characteristics. This is their website. Go all the way down here, puberty blockers. These are medicines that block the hormones that cause body changes during puberty. Imagine what that does to a young child. Then here we go. Surgeries. This would be plastic surgeries. They offered this. They show it on their Essence in the children's hospital page. It says surgeries. There are different surgeries that can change the look and the function of your body. They can help your body match your gender identity. Now, some non-medical options, which I thought were really interesting, that they can help with is hair removal, breast binding and padding, and this one, boy, penis tucking or packing. So anyway, there you have it, right on the St. Luke's website. And then down here, this would almost be comical if it wasn't so serious and gross of a matter. It says, the transgender woman has special health needs and may visit a gynecologist for care after gender affirmation surgery. On the other hand, a transgender man's needs must be addressed by a gynecologist. So, I mean, if you're a woman, you go to a gynecologist, no matter whether you've been tried to turn into a man or not. And they're recognizing you still got to go to a gynecologist because why? Because they're the ones that understand the reproduction system of a woman. And so even if you get a surgery at St. Luke's to try to make you like you're a man, you still got to go visit a gynecologist. This is the stuff that's going on. And St. Luke's, the evangelist, would be turning in his grave right now. I'm sure he's turning over in his grave right now. Because the St. Luke's hospital is just using his name and, and doing terrible things. Here are the providers that provide these services. There's a plastic surgeon and, who else? Here they are. Now, I have to warn you, I think this is important to show you, though, but this would be something that, you don't want your children to see. These are some pictures of actual surgeries that are done to a minor in a sex change. And you could just imagine the trauma of the body and just everything else going through this. Now, as a good friend of mine pointed out, this is being done to healthy children where their reproduction system are healthy. Everything, is healthy. Their organs are healthy. But because they've been manipulated into getting some type of gender affirmation sex change, they go through these type of trauma and medical procedures. It's just wicked, my friends. It's just flat out wicked. And it's being done right here in Idaho by St. Luke's. And the same very people that are coming after Diego and I so ruthlessly because we stood up for that little baby and their family and got that baby back to his parents. They're coming after us and wanting to completely destroy our lives. Now, these are the very same people, just to remind you, these are very same people that sponsored the Boise Pride Festival, which featured drag kids as young as 11 getting on stage, dressing up like drag queens, and performing sexual acts in front of everybody else. That's who these people are. If you remember, here's an actual some of the sponsors. This is just one page of the sponsors of the Boise Pride Festival that were had scheduled a drag kids show. And you can see right there, Holland Hart, St. Luke's, Department of Health and Welfare, CPS was one of them, the IACI boys. And ultimately what case has become against Diego and I is just political retaliation for challenging the Idaho establishment's power. St. Luke's Hospital is closely connected with the Department of Health and Welfare, CPS, the Governor's Office, Holland Hart, and IACI. And we have challenged them many, many times, especially during COVID. Now, just to make this connection, here's a list of just one portion of the COVID relief funds that went to St. Luke's Hospital. It's over $121 million coming directly from the Governor's Office to St. Luke's hospitals. And I just wonder how much of this money is going to mutilate children in Idaho. Now, if you know, most of their annual funds come from donations that the good people of Idaho give St. Luke's or taxpayer dollars. And what are they using it for? They're using it for, things like child sex changes and to pay high dollar attorneys to come after their political enemies. Here's on the governor's website, it shows here that part of governor's working group, coronavirus working group, is the CEO of St. Luke's was on it. And then here shows how much he made in 2020, $8.5 million. And look at the treasurer for St. Luke's in 2020 made $1.2 million. The treasurer. These are coming from donations and taxpayers. This was prior to the COVID money, so this is just donations and taxpayer money. And I just want to, express to you what's really happening and who is really doing this to Diego and I and our families. And that we've been put under peril. If the judge awards what they want, there will be a warrant out for my arrest. They'll arrest me and put me in jail. And, what do I do about that? They also, if the judge awards what they want, they will be awarded $7.5 million of money that Diego and I don't have. We're just family men. We don't have that money. So they'll take everything from us. They'll take our homes, our bank accounts, our vehicles, everything, our businesses. They'll take everything from us. And there's just really no way to stop them. St. Luke's is paying them hundreds of thousands of dollars just to bury us, and there's just no way to respond. There has been no way to respond, and they know that. And so this is why I need you to be aware of what's going on and who is doing it and why I felt like I had to do this video. So, thank you.
All right, I wasn't going to come back on here, but I got some text messages that while that last video was playing, I took a look and noticed somebody saying that the video, there were some audio issues on the video that Ammon had posted about the original video versus the allegedly doctored video that was allegedly used in the court trial where St. Luke's was ordered allegedly allegedly awarded that $52 million. So I'm going to go ahead and tag that video right here on the end of it. And I'll go onto social media and let you know that you can go to the end of it. You can watch that video in its entirety. So give me just a moment to pull that up. I apologize for that. Let's get that pulled up for you. And then I'll play it in its entirety for you so that you have that to watch as well. So it'll take me a second to find the appropriate one. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to pop that back up on here and do the full screen so that you can, apparently my full screen's working on the audio, but I have something going on in my software that's not allowing the window version to play. So I'll bring it full screen so you can see it in its entirety and you can decide for yourself. Did they cheat? Did they doctor the video? Was that fair? Should Ammon and Bundy call for a mistrial? Those are good questions. I think those are questions you ought to be asking yourself. And should this law firm be representing the state of Idaho? Because imagine if you're on the receiving end of that. If these allegations are true, they're not playing fair.
Now, I have to say that I'm not okay with any of this. To be honest with you, if justice was to be served, we would go into that hospital, take that baby, and we'd give it back to their mother. And then if we are further to administrate justice, we would find those that were accountable and we would prosecute them and make them pay for the damages that they caused to this family and assure that this never happens again. That's what should happen. And I will say this, that I'm not alone in those feelings, but we also have had to suppress those thoughts and actions because we are trying to give the people that are making the decisions, that are doing this thing to them, give them a chance to correct this issue so we don't have to do it for them.
Does this look to be the video that you saw in the morning on March 15th?
I believe this is the video in the afternoon.
Okay. So if we go ahead and play the video, I've got some questions for you after it.
If justice was to be served, we would go into the hospital, take that baby, and we'd give it back to their mother. And then if we were further to administrate justice, we would find those that were accountable and we would prosecute them and make them pay. I know that there are groups, patriot groups, that have, make them pay for the damages that they caused to this family. Make them pay. I know that there are groups, patriot groups, that have, make them pay for the damages that they caused to this family. Make them pay. I know that there are groups, make them pay for the damages that they caused to this family and assure that this never happens again. That's what should happen. Make them pay. I know that there are groups, patriot groups, that have wanted to count.
All right, there you have it. And I'm going to leave it with that. Please share this, get it out there to everybody you can, folks.